Today we're going to be talking about a man named John Murray. And if you had asked John Murray, he would have said he was the unluckiest man ever. John Murray was a Calvinist minister. And if you don't know what that means, what it means is he thought that from birth, some people were going to hell. And other people were going to do just fine, and that it was all predetermined before you were even born. He was very, very proud of his beliefs. And so when he heard that there was another minister in town who was preaching that his God loved everyone and no one would go to hell, he didn't want any part of this. But he stayed quiet until he heard there was a young lady beyond reproach who believed this Universalist nonsense. Now, what do you think poor old unlucky John Murray did? John Murray just knew he could convince anyone. So he got 5 or 6 young gentlemen that he wanted to show how to do things right. And they went and found this young lady. And they presented their Calvinist side. And the young lady said, "Oh, I don't believe in that." And she began to present the most amazingly well-reasoned argument John Murray had ever heard. She said, if your Jesus died for everyone, to redeem everyone, then they're redeemed. It's not like a coupon where unless you have one, you're in trouble. He already died, according to you, to redeem everyone. Therefore, everyone is redeemed, whether they believe it or not, whether they're already saved or not. And your Calvinist argument just doesn't hold water. Well, John Murray went home thinking, what an unlucky man I am to have met this young lady. And he wrote to friends, I shall heretofore avoid these Universalists entirely. But the idea she had planted in his head kept growing and growing, and so he went and switched from Calvinism to this new Universalist perspective. And within a few months he was preaching, and then more bad luck. First his wife died, then his child, then his sisters and his brother. He was the unluckiest man on the planet. He got sent to debtor's prison. His friends bailed him out and said, John, go somewhere else. You're not living lucky here. And John said, all I've got left is my Bible and my bag. I'm going to take those 2 things and I'm going to head for America. And what do you think happened? He got on the ship, he headed for New York, he made it to New Jersey, and then he got unlucky. The wind stopped, they hit a sandbar, and there he was. Unlucky John Murray. And the boat captain said, all right, get in the ship's boat, the small boat, and I'll send you to shore with my men to deliver some of our goods. They got in the boat, headed to shore, the boat got stuck. So John Murray sent the men into town with all his possessions that had come in on the boat. And he thought, well, what do I do now? Well, here came a man over the hill. And he introduced himself, and the man said, I'm Thomas Potter. Who are you? And he said, I'm John Murray. I just came here in that boat, the hand in hand. It's stuck. He said, I'm a minister. And he said, well, wouldn't you know? I just built a church, and I'm looking for a minister. Why don't you preach here on Sunday? And John Murray said, oh, no. I don't want anything else to do with that stuff. I'm coming to America so I never have to do it again. And Thomas Potter, being a clever man, said, yeah, but you're stuck. You're not going anywhere. So why not preach? John Murray said, I'll be gone by Sunday. He said, but if you're not, why not preach? And John Murray, not thinking about how good his luck had been, said, well, sure, if I'm still stuck here on Sunday, I'll preach. Sunday morning dawned. A man had never prayed so hard for wind, but there wasn't a drop of wind to be had, and so he went in and preached and preached and preached, and they loved him. He said, "I don't care, I'm leaving." The wind didn't change, so he preached the next weekend, and the minute he finished in the pulpit that second week, the wind changed. And John Murray got on his boat, but he couldn't forget how much he loved what he was doing. And so in New York, he opened another church, one with this newfangled Universalist idea. And he became the father of Universalism in America. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is good old unlucky John Murray, who may have been the luckiest man around in that he got a second chance to do what he truly loved. Thank you for listening to my words today. Would help if I remembered what order the service went in. Priests and pastors and ministers of all kinds always live in a world of good news, bad news. So I offer you our offering words today with my normal seriousness. Good news, you baptized 7 people in the river. Bad news, you lost 2 of them in the current. Good news, you got sick from being out there in the cold water, and the women's group voted to send you a get well card. Bad news, the vote passed 31-30. Good news, the board accepted your job description exactly the way you wrote it. Bad news, they were so inspired, they're going to go try to find the guy it actually represents. Good news, church attendance rose dramatically in the last 3 weeks. Bad news, you were on vacation. Good news, the youth of the church came to your house for a visit. Bad news, it was with toilet paper and shaving cream. And finally, good news, the board has agreed that you can go and tour the Holy Land for study on them. Bad news, they're waiting for another war to break out before they send you. To help support these and other gems of spiritual wisdom, the morning offering will now be given and received, and for those giving digitally, you can go to our website, ucdsm.org. There's a give button. 1/2 of our plate goes to the internal social justice work of the church, and 1/2 to our faith and action partners, Knock and Drop and Just Voices. these gifts and for all the gifts you bring to your church. Your time, your talent, your treasure, they're all equally appreciated, so thank you. Today we're going to try learning a mantra meditation. We're going to do this silently. A mantra, that's a word that you use silently in your head. It's a word you pick because it makes you feel calm or relaxed, and you can pick any word you like. A friend of mine used to say she used the word cheeseburger because it made her feel happy. So I want you to take just a second and think of a word that makes you feel calm and happy when you hear it. And if you can't think of a word, it's okay to use a sound like om or ah. When you get your mantra, it quiets your breathing and slows it down. And as you quiet and slow your body, it quiets and slows your mind. For those who are just starting meditation, doing a simple mantra meditation can help folks like me, whose mind just wanders off during meditation and gets busy doing other things. So pick your mantra. It can be simple like relax or peace or om. Get comfortable, but not too slouchy, whatever makes you feel comfortable in your seat. And we're going to spend about 30 seconds just sitting with your eyes closed, taking deep breaths, and then we're going to silently start repeating our mantras in our heads. So I'm going to ask you to sit for 30 seconds or 15 seconds, whatever's comfortable for you. And when you're ready, start thinking of your mantra. There's no need to try to change or stop your thoughts. Just keep thinking that word in your head silently, and we're going to do that for an additional 30 seconds, so a minute total. So please join me in a minute of silent meditation. As we come back to ourselves, we also come back to community, which is the most important part of church, not the people up here up front, but the people out there in the seats. We're a community of human hands and human hearts, and we're there for each other. We minister to one another in good times and in bad. We cry together and we laugh together, and we bear witness to one another. May we hold in our good thoughts and prayers this week Ann Mowry and Al Powers and their family. Ann writes, Al's daughter Melissa's leukemia is back with force. Her Virginia doctors got her into MD Anderson Cancer Center, and so Al and Ann are driving to Houston today. We'll be staying for an unknown period of time. They don't think they need anything, but know people would like to send good wishes, and they'd like to hear your good wishes. They ask that you email them to them. And that email is al2an2@msn.com, or you can email me and I'll get it to you, or it's in the directory. We have a joy this week in that we have an amazing forum going to happen today. I highly recommend it. Come on down and listen. Our social justice ministry leadership team is going to be doing it. It's about sustaining yourself during rough times. What gives you hope? What sustains you? We want to hear your ideas, and we want you to hear some ideas, and it should be a lot of fun. There are a couple of board members who you might have seen walking around with a packet that has names in it that they're highlighting. We're tracking vaccination. So if you're vaccinated, please stop by and make sure they highlight your name. We want to make sure if we ever have an exposure that we know who to call first. You can be here whether or not you're vaccinated. We do ask that you wear masks, that everybody wear masks. But please, if you didn't get your name checked off, see them at the back. Leanne and Sherwin back have that list. They'll just check you off. That's it. You'll never have to do it again. Let's share together now the names of anyone else we know who could use some special care or love or attention this week. If you're on Zoom, you're welcome to type the names into the chat. If you're here in the room, please feel free to call out names. And as we type them in and call them out, may the love of this community hold them all. The Gunthers. May the light of our community always shine on the broken places of the world. And may the work of our hands and our hearts support and aid and comfort all those who hunger or thirst for food or water or justice or freedom. May we never look away when we're needed. May those who are grieving be comforted. May those who are tired find rest. May the broken places be healed. And may those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant. And now together we light 3 candles, one for the joys and sorrows we've shared here today, one for the names that we've written and spoken, and one last candle for all of the joys and all of the sorrows which we hold deeply, but we're not able to speak or write here today.
Our first reading today is from Dial Hope. It's entitled Thoughts About Traveling Mercies. We are talking today about the good that can come from the bad, the silver linings. This reading tells us that being lost can sometimes remind us of the people who are there, waiting to lead us home. In her book, Traveling Mercies, Anne Lamott shares a story from her pastor about a time when her best friend got lost as a little girl. The little girl ran up and down the streets of the big town where they lived, but she couldn't find a single landmark. She was very frightened. Finally, a policeman stopped to help her. He put her in the passenger seat of his car, and they drove around until she finally saw her church. She pointed it out to the policeman, and then she told him firmly, "You could let me out now. This is my church, and I can always find my way home from here." Lamott picks up on the metaphor and says, "That's why I have stayed so close to mine, because no matter how bad I am feeling, how lost or lonely or frightened, when I see the faces of the people at my church and hear their tawny voices, I can always find my way home." We all need people in our lives who help us feel at home with ourselves and the world around us. We all need people who will comfort us and encourage us and even challenge us to live better. I pray for you today that you would give yourself fully to such a community of people so that when you are lost or scared or confused or hurting, you always can find your way home.
It's how I hold my head up after I have missed the mark. It's how I know I'm loved when things are dark. It's how I stand when I am feeling small. How I stand again after a fall. It's how I'm even standing here at all. Some people call it grace. Falling down like rain on everyone, so warm, like greetings from the sun, like a gentle snow. It's making every surface glow, and I know I didn't earn it. That's how I know it's grace. It's how two people keep their love alive through forgiveness. It's how a broken people sing again. It's how the wounded set aside their blame. How the down and out cast out their shame. It's how I even know He is my name. We're all the same to grace. Falling down like rain on everyone, so warm, like greetings from the sun, like a gentle snow. It's making every surface glow, and I didn't have to earn it. No, I didn't have to earn it. I didn't have to earn it through a word or through a deed or through a trial or a plea or by denying what I need. I only had to reach out my hand, and it was there. It was there. But still it cannot take away the truths I have to face. Oh no, that's not how it works with grace. Ooh. like greetings from the sun, like a gentle snow, it's making every surface glow. And I know I didn't earn it. No, I didn't have to earn it. I didn't earn it. I didn't have to earn it. That's how I know it's grace.
Our second reading is an excerpt from Keep Moving by Maggie Smith. Faced with so many blank pages, all the blank days, months, and years ahead, I am learning to write this next draft in first person singular. I'm revising my thinking about loss. Part of the work is asking myself difficult questions. Who did you want to be before? What did you sacrifice, compromise, or leave behind along the way? What of that earlier draft of yourself can you salvage? What spark can you find? How can you pull that spark into your present life, the story you're living now? Our lives may not unfold the way we'd hoped or expected, but the alternatives, flipping to the end of the book, knowing the ending before we get there, is not only impossible, but joyless, polished, dull. As my daughter said in her 8-year-old wisdom, that would be boring. Revising our stories, our lives is no easy task. Our stories may take stranger turns. We may find that we are living part mystery, part romance, part comedy, part tragedy, part ghost story. We don't know what will happen next or how it will end, but we keep moving. Hope is imaginative. It allows you to envision what might be up ahead, even when you see nothing. Hope. Imagine your way forward. Keep moving. Stop expecting the worst. At least as many things could go right as could go wrong. Think of optimism as a way of sitting in the sun now, regardless of what the weather might be tomorrow or next week. Keep moving. Maybe you have a little voice inside that says you aren't strong enough to handle what life's left at your feet. That voice lies. Prove it wrong today, then repeat, repeat, repeat. Keep moving. Our centering song today is number 208, Every Time I Feel the Spirit Move. The words will be on the screen. Please keep your mics muted if you are singing along at home.
Above the mountains.
9 years ago, Metro Trains in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, put out a public service announcement, and it was called Dumb Ways to Die. If you've not seen it, Google it at some point. It's on YouTube. I'm seeing some thumbs up out there. They even made a video game about it. I cannot win that thing. But it was adorable and funny, and the song was catchy, and it worked. Within a couple months, they had a 30% drop in accidents where cars tried to beat a train. You know, at the time, I even wrote a sermon about making good choices. The whole point of the video was to think about what you're doing and not to get hurt doing something senseless. It made people think before something bad happened. Now, none of us would do any of the things in the video. We're not going to sell both kidneys, use bits of ourselves as piranha bait, or dress up like a moose in hunting season. Most of us, we've made it this far. We're sitting here. We know not to stick a fork in the toaster. That's bad. We know not to eat a tube of super glue. But it doesn't mean we're always safe from bad things happening. Bad things happen. Bad things happen to good people. Bad things happen, good things happen, surprising things happen. And sometimes they have nothing to do with anything you did at all. Sometimes it's just dumb luck. We run out of gas because the fuel gauge broke, not because we forgot to fill up, or our tire blows out, not because we drove on it too long, but because there happened to be a nail on the road. It isn't always about us. There's an article by Leslie Bradshaw in Forbes magazine, and she says something interesting. There are psychology studies out there that show that in general, female-identified people tend to attribute success to good luck and failure to lack of skill. And people who identify as male, guess what they do? They attribute success to skill and failure to bad luck. Nobody knows how this stuff works. Let's admit it. Good luck, bad luck, no luck, God, no God, nobody knows. Sometimes stuff just happens. Lack of skill, lack of luck, bad decision making, bad things happen to good and bad people. But good things do too. Good things happen. And good can come from the strangest places and at the worst times, if we're prepared to let it be good. To let it be good, even if it comes in the middle of the horrible. Serendipity is the word you're looking for there. Unexpected good. Accidental moments of joy, no matter what else is going on. Serendipity. Serendipity, the unexpected good. Now, you can't plan for it, but you can be ready when it comes. You can welcome it. Now, please understand, I am not talking about the idea that some horrible bad thing happened to teach you something. Forget that. If I break my ankle, nobody sent that to me to teach me something. I just broke my ankle. But if I break my ankle and I happen to meet the world's most attractive, funniest, most interesting person while I'm sitting in the hospital waiting for it to be fixed, those two things didn't cause each other. if we sit there and talk for 6 hours because this person is fascinating, that's serendipity. Good things can happen at bad times, at challenging times, and that's okay. When we were talking during Children's Chapel about John Murray was a mess. John Murray was egotistical. John Murray thought he knew better than everyone around him. John Murray made an ass out of himself, trying to argue with a 23-year-old girl who had no theological understanding whatsoever, but understood theology better than he did. Took him a while to recover. He started drinking. Everybody he loved died. His sermons didn't bring in the crowds anymore. And he tried to get behind this universalist idea, but it wasn't universalism as we know it yet. It was just purely this idea that some God wouldn't reject you. And he tried his best, but he ended up in prison. And his friends stepped up and bailed him out. In the midst of all this terribleness, somebody still loved him enough to say to him, "Here's money, go somewhere else." And John came here to America, and he really thought he was going to get away from all this ministry foolishness. And can you imagine showing up, stuck on a boat? You walk up the first hill you see, and there's some guy saying, "Hey, I just built this church." It turned out to be exactly what he needed to save his life, to stop the drinking, to stop the money spending, to stop the getting in trouble. But I bet if you had asked John Murray when he met Thomas Potter, he would have said, "This is the worst moment of my life." All of these things happened to John Murray essentially because he ran out of gas. His ship got stuck. He ran out of gas preaching in England. He ran out of gas. His family all died. He just kept hitting the place where he couldn't go anymore. And then something miraculous happened. He got given his life back. Now, I can't speak for anybody but myself, but moments when things go wrong have never been high on my list of things I'd like to happen routinely. When things go wrong, I'm not looking for the good bits. I don't care about the silver lining. I just want to be upset in that moment. Maybe some of you are much better human beings than I am. The same year Dumb Ways to Die came out, a friend and I were driving from Chicago back to Kentucky. We're both ministers. And a tire blew out at close to 80 miles an hour. We were about a mile out of the Calumet exit, for anybody who really wants to know, outside of Gary, Indiana. Anybody ever visit Gary, Indiana? Few people. It's a lovely place, I am sure, but not from the expressway. And we sat there. We managed to get the car off to the side of the road, realized there was a beautiful stretch of urban prairie right there. And we called AAA, and the young lady was very confused. She couldn't understand where we were. She finally said, "Well, help will get there eventually." And so we sat there. And we sat there. We sat there some more. And my friend started to talk because the sun was setting and it was gorgeous. It was absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. And he said, you know, it's amazing. We've driven through here for 3 years. Look at this prairie. Look at the wildflowers. My God, look at this sunset. It's gorgeous. And the contrast, all these cars going by at 80 and 90 miles an hour. Man, this is awesome. And as I recollect, I sat there a moment and said in my best ministerial voice, I hate you more than I ever have in my life. And then I took a deep, deep breath and I tried to look at what he was seeing. And I tried to shift the gears in my head. I didn't want to see how pretty it was, because that would be somehow wrong. We're having an accident here. We spent 3 hours out there. By the time the confused young lady showed up, she told us why she was confused. Her mom had just been admitted to hospice. She'd been at home crying. She'd been up for 20-something hours. She had to take calls, and she wished she had a minister, but she didn't. And we both went. And we had an amazing 45-minute conversation with this young lady, sitting by the side of the road on a couple of suitcases with some warm pop. It was the most beautiful moment I could have imagined. A friend who lost her brother a few years ago said on her way home she was in such shock that she stopped at a gas station and just did her normal routine. She got a cup of coffee. She bought scratch-off tickets. She said, I didn't even remember telling them I wanted them, but that's what I did when I stopped at a gas station. And she started to scratch them. She won $500. And she said, I stood there for a moment and I burst into tears and I threw them down and I jumped on them. Because all I could think of, how could this happen? This is sad. How could this happen? Now my whole day is ruined. And she said at that point, she caught up with her own brain and went, wait a minute. I am furious because I just won $500 at the wrong time. It's possible to get so connected to the bad that is happening, to a pandemic, to a loss, that when there's a tiny, bright moment, or a large, bright moment, it feels almost like an attack. It feels like it shouldn't be happening because now isn't the time for that. Now is a bad time. I shouldn't be able to enjoy that ice cream I grabbed for lunch to give myself something to cheer me up. I shouldn't enjoy my $500, not even for a minute, because this is bad, right? It's all black or white. It's easy to get tied up in blaming yourself, shaming yourself, prepared to defend yourself against others' opinions, suffering through the circumstances, dealing with the circumstances. And we forget to look at what else is going on. Groups from a lot of religions say there's no such thing as coincidence. Things happen because the universe is trying to provide us with a teaching opportunity. Others say that it's karma or ripples. Terry Pratchett said, you know what, things happen. Maybe it's all just luck. Whatever the reason, and no matter what happens, our call is to stop and explore every moment of our life, to feel what we're feeling, to assess and reassess what's possible, to look for what may have been created, because good can happen. The worst times, at the strangest times, we're all prepared for the other shoe to drop with bad things. We're pretty prepared for, you know what, something bad could happen, but something good could happen. You run out of gas and you realize, my God, this is the most beautiful thing ever. You miss your exit and you find a park that you never knew existed. You get sent the wrong pizza and discover you love anchovies. Serendipity, the unexpected good, the accidental joy. You can't plan for it, but you can be ready when it comes. Or not, that's up to you. Be ready. And I never thought I'd say this in a UU church, but in the words of Oral Roberts, something good is going to happen to you today. You deserve it. You're worth it. You're imperfectly perfect, and you deserve every good thing that comes your way. You're worth it. Amen.
We extinguish this chalice, knowing that wherever we go, we will find sudden moments of light. Our final song today is number 295, Sing Out Praises for the Journey. The words will be on the screens. Please keep your mics muted and sing along at home if you would like. We're going to sing it through twice.
Twice? Yeah. There are 3 verses. All 3 verses. We're going to sing all 3 verses.
Not twice.
We go out from this place knowing that where there is life, there is also the potential for joy. Go bravely into the world and reach out for all that is good. Peace, ashe, and may it be so.